Hello, my name is Timmons. I am project president at the Institute of Community Education at the University of Minnesota. We are partnered with the Minnesota Department of MPCCP to bring a webinar series titled Making Work a Part of Your Making Work a Part of Your Plan. Beginning in the department, this is a series of 10 webinars, and we will come on for a variety of topics on employment services, support, and policies in Minnesota. Today's webinar is entitled Working with Strategy, Opportunity, and Risk. Managing health and safety with successful employment activities is not always easy. The group recorded of ability or disability. Everyone has potential risks, failures, and successes. When you come to working in a community or to find someone with a disability to pursue the employment dream, this issue seems to be more prevalent. Advantage risk is also a decisive factor. Regardless of ability, we all need some support and accommodations, however applicable sport. Please enjoy this webinar.
Thank you, Jeffrey. My name is Joe Timmons. I work at the Institute on Community Integration with Jeffrey, and today I'm going to facilitate this conversation with three panelists. The first is Lyth Hartz, the Executive Director of Midwest Special Services, a day training and rehabilitation center. Welcome, Lyth.
Thank you, Joe.
Could you please share with our audience a little bit of your personal history and experience supporting people with developmental disabilities?
Yes, I'd be pleased to. First of all, thank you, Joe, for inviting me today. I have worked my entire adult life in the field of developmental disabilities, and I became interested in doing that while I was a student at Augsburg College. And while as a student there, I had an internship with the Department of Public Welfare that, quite frankly, launched my career, and I was able to work with a woman named Shirley Bankston, who was the Assistant Director of Guardianship Services. And I learned so much from that woman about services for people with disabilities throughout the entire state, and it was just a magnificent opportunity for me. When I graduated from college, then I got my first real job in the field in Rochester, Minnesota at the Olmsted Day Activity Center. That's what they were called back then, where I worked as a social worker for that agency. And we served both children and adults at the Olmsted DAC. And I worked there for 4 years. Then I took some time off and went to University of Tennessee School of Social Work to get a master's degree. And while I was in Tennessee, I worked in 2 places in internships. One was the Harris Hillman School in Nashville, Tennessee, which was it was the school for students with disabilities. And then I also worked for this Tennessee State Department of Mental Health, Mental Retardation, as it was known back then. After that experience, which was 2 years, then I moved to St. Paul, Minnesota in 1979, and I got my job at my current employer, which then was called United Cerebral Palsy of Greater St. Paul. And we changed our name later in 1983 to Midwest Special Services. So I've worked my entire career in this, and I chose the career because I felt a special affinity, I guess, for people that had disabilities.
That's great. When you began at United Cerebral Palsy, what did the employment services and supports look like?
Well, our agency, United Cerebral Palsy, at that time had two main programs. We had the Day Activity Center, or later, soon after I got there, it became Developmental Achievement Center, still using the DAC letters. But the other part of our agency, what was then it was then known as a sheltered workshop program. We now call it our employment program. But that, so what happened was, people that made referrals to our agency, if they thought the person was ready for work and wanted to work, they referred them to the sheltered workshop program. If they didn't feel that they were suitable for the work world, then they were referred to the DAC. And at United Cerebral Palsy, we, in the Ramsey County area, our special niche was people with multiple levels of disability. So we had a lot of people that depended on wheelchairs and walking aids and things like that. Many were needing a great deal of help in independent living skills, going to the bathroom or eating and that kind of thing. So work was very, very sporadic and very limited in the DAC program. Once in a while we would get something from the sheltered workshop handed down to us. But the other thing that was very interesting with our agency is that we were the hosts. We hosted a group of 3 people that had cerebral palsy with no intellectual disabilities, and they were all accountants. And they had an accounting business that officed in our sheltered workshop facility on Payne Avenue back then. And so even then, there were some people that were in the real workaday world with significant disabilities. The other thing that the employment program did, or the sheltered workshop did, is we tried to place people into community-based jobs and independent jobs, even back then. But most of the work was in-house sheltered work.
What kind of work was that?
Mostly hand packaging and assembly for area businesses. And probably the largest job that we ever did was packaging automobile stripes for 3M company. And these were stripes that were made for the aftermarket industry. So these weren't going to the manufacturers to be put on the cars when they were made. They were made to go to repair shops when somebody had an accident so that they could repair that automobile stripe. And the makes and models and color schemes of these stripes were immense. There was all kinds of them, and so quality was a big, big deal. And we had a quality rating, defective parts per million, that was actually better than 3M's at the time. So we were very proud of that and proud of the work that our people did for them. Later, we lost that work, mainly because people stopped wanting stripes on their cars. They felt like they didn't make them perform better, and they just apparently didn't think they make them look that much better, so they quit buying stripes, and we lost that business.
Back then, how were you funded? How did Midwest Special Services make budget and support people that way?
The employment program, or the sheltered workshop program, largely was funded by our business customers, the 3M's of the world. And so we tried to make a profit on the work that we did with them. But we also had extended employment funding from the Department of, well, now it's DEED, Department of Employment and Economic Development, DEED. So we had that funding plus VR money, voc rehab money through DEED. The DAC program, back when I first started, was funded both by what was called a grant and aid from the state of Minnesota. And that was about 60% of our budget. The rest of the money came from, in our case, Ramsey County, or the other counties that were the home county to our clients. And so then in the middle 80s, that funding changed to Medicaid and more medical money. And at that point, when we first started, we negotiated our budgets every year. When we got the medical money, we had a translation to get new rates, But then it was pretty much formula driven by the state of Minnesota from then on. And so there wasn't a lot of negotiations anymore, which was both good and bad. You couldn't, you couldn't make the changes as the populations changed. So,
In the last 10 years, and especially more in the last 3 years because of the Olmsted decision and the Jensen settlement, what has happened outside of Midwest Special Services that has impacted your policies and practices related to employment supports?
the whole world of supported employment has grown up during those time periods. And let me speak to the DAC first.
Can you define supported employment first?
Supported employment is work in the community where a worker is out with job coaches that may or may not be there the whole time. They drop in and support them when they need it. We try to limit that support as much as we can, but we also want to have the person be successful. So it's work in the community with supports. And that whole thing changed the way we think. When DACs were first created, they were created as schools or school substitutes. And we called the rooms that they were in classrooms. We called the staff that were there teachers. The clientele thought of themselves as a student. We had summer programs, we'd take breaks and everything. But after the supported employment piece started, that began to really change. And our sheltered employment program thought of themselves as a business. They did not have school breaks. And they worked all year long. The staff that were there were supervisors. We had business customers, and the clients that we served thought of themselves as workers. This whole thing began to change, and the DAC programs throughout the state began to change with it. So we stopped kind of thinking of ourselves as schools and more like businesses, and we began to have calendars that did not have breaks. And even our clients at that time began to see themselves as workers. And we usually would try to get as many jobs as we could into the facility to help people do that work as well, while we were also always on the lookout for opportunities in the community, especially with small groups of people.
And how much were people making as wages back then?
Well, it all depended on their ability to produce towards the standard of the work. We have mostly in the years past paid what's called a special minimum wage, and that is a wage that is determined by deciding what is the prevailing wage for that kind of work in the community. And I'm going to try and make this easy for myself. So let's say it's $10 an hour, so I can do the math here. If somebody, and then we would measure how much work should be done by a competent, capable worker, and that would, let's say that was 10 pieces per hour for $10 an hour. If the person made 5 pieces in an hour, they would make $5. If they made 3, they'd get $3. And so it was variable like that, but it was called commensurate. And from my perspective, that's an important piece to keep in play for people who, because of their disability, work slow. They can work very, very well, but they may produce slowly. And so the minimum wage conversations that are about now they're kind of scary to me, because I fear that if it requires minimum wage payment, I believe many people that have disabilities will lose all of their work, because the employers need to be able to win too on this, and so they would be overpaying for their labor.
Responding to social and economic conditions has led MSS, or Midwest Special Services, to reposition its employment supports for people with developmental disabilities. Can you tell us what the future holds?
I sure wish I could. That was the scariest part of the questions that I saw here today. Our board of directors has been very concerned about our employment program, because we've lost a lot of money in the last several years with the downturn of the economy. And so we brought in consultants, and we worked with our board very closely, And one of the things that we decided that we needed to do is we needed to make some changes, but we first decided we needed to have sort of the standards by which we would make a change. And the standards came out to be, they had to be person-centered, whatever we do has to be integrated, and whatever we do has to be flexible. So those three things. And so the person-centered piece is critically important to all this. It's very time-consuming, but what person-centered from my perspective boils down to is what's important to the person and what's important for the person. I think our industry has done a pretty good job as to what's important for the person for a very long time. We need to improve our abilities to figure out what's important to the person. So that would be the big thing. Most recently, our agency has determined that we believe now that in order for us to be successful in moving people into the community, we're going to have to stop doing in-house work. It's kind of like you can't be employed by two masters, and you're gonna short one and be good for the other. We're not being good to the community efforts by continuing the in-house work much longer. So we're hoping to end that this year. It's very scary. It's a major change for us, and you know, we've got a fairly large facility that we do this work in. What we would like to do is turn that facility into a community resource, inviting in entrepreneurs, artists, beekeepers, whatever we might find out there. And if those people came in and found that some of our clients would make a good source of labor for them, let them hire them directly, not with us as the intermediary. So I'm not saying that there'll never be work done in our facility, but not in the current model that we're doing. But most of our people we're going to be trying to place in the community and support them out there. And most want that, many want that, not all. And so we are also, you know, we're aware that we will probably get some of our people that we support unhappy with us, and they'll want to leave and go do something else. We'll try and support them in that as best we can too. So, but that we're getting geared up to make a major change moving towards the community.
Good. And can you tell me how the Olmsted decision, the Olmsted plan in Minnesota has impacted you?
Well, everything is about integration. It's about person-centeredness. It's about employment first. I'm not at all opposed to employment first. I probably would come down opposed to employment only, but not employment first. So we don't see one size fitting all, and as I understand the ruling and the Olmsted plan, it's made so that one size doesn't fit all. It's supposed to be person-centered, gearing to what is important to them and what's important for them. So we hope that our industry can, and us in specifically at Midwest Special Services, that we can do that correctly.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Next, we're going to hear from Bobbi McAdoo Gaylon. She's the parent of Eric, a 24-year-old man who has struggled with employment and independent living issues. She's a former professor at Hammond University Law School. Welcome, Bobbi.
Hi, thank you.
Could you please tell us a little bit about Eric? What are his hopes and dreams when it comes to work and life as an adult?
Yes, I can. I think that Eric, as you said, is 24 years old. He graduated from college last May, and he, whether it's the influence of his parents, who were both academics at university level, or his sister, who's now a third grade teacher, what he mostly thinks about for his future right now is being in the education field in some way. He doesn't feel that he would be able to actually manage a classroom himself, but his biggest hope at the moment is the possibility of doing some teacher assistant work in a school system. Frankly, part of that, I think, is because he wants to be on the school schedule, where he would have sort of a August, September timeframe till May, June timeframe, because his real love in life has to do with chess, and he has a summer position at the School Chess Association chess camp, and that's really the love of his life. And he knows he could probably have that job from now till the day he dies. And that is what he so loves to do, working with kids. So he would like to for sure be in the chess area. I don't know that he or his parents think that a full-time job year-round in chess is going to be enough to pay his bills. So if he could find a job that would allow him to still do chess camp in the summer, but be something meaningful during the school year, I think that's his first priority. He talks about being married someday, and living what other people would perhaps think of as a fairly normal life. So in that way, I think he's a somewhat normal 24-year-old.
Can you think of some things that are important to him and important for him, like Lyth talked about when it comes to person-centered thinking and person-centered planning?
Well, the most important thing to him, or second, I think, to family. I think he really is very, very family-centered. But the most important thing to him is clearly chess, and being able to include chess in his life. His goal there is to become a master. And I think he'll reach it, actually. I think what's also very important to him is having people around him. He's pretty interactive as a person, as long as you don't catch him at the point that he is in the middle of, for example, a chess game or something else. When he's got a plan and he's in the middle of doing it, woe be the person who tries to interrupt him to suggest that we might need to do something else. So it's really important to him in some ways to be able to manage his own time and his own life in a way to do the things that he wants to do. I think he recognizes that something that's very important for him is having a sufficiently supportive environment. I think he recognizes that the fact that he has been as successful as he has been to date is that he's had just a tremendous number of supports around him. Some of them are somewhat invisible to the outside world. Some of them are invisible to him. But I still think that he knows that he couldn't be where he is if he hadn't had a lot of support. So I think it's very important to him, for him to still have supports in place. But at the same time, if I'm understanding the 2 and 4, it really is quite important to him to ultimately be able to call his own shots. He's pretty scared about that, though, because he's living at home very supported right now.
And what are some health and safety issues you think about when it comes to the future for Eric?
Well, I don't think about a lot of health issues in the way that probably most people think about health. Eric has always been a super healthy person outside of the sort of behavioral developmental disabilities kinds of issues that he has faced. But those have not been health in the sense of being sick very often or going to the doctor very often or having to deal with that side of health issues. But the sort of behavioral outbursts, not always being able to control himself, those are of great concern, not only to me. I mean, they are of great concern to him as well. The safety issues are, I think, not something he thinks much about yet. I think my husband and I think about it and worry about it quite a lot, maybe too much, but we don't know. When you look at perhaps outburst issues, he's kind of a fight or flight person, except I might as well take the fight word out. I don't think he's going to ever fight with anybody physically. He is prone to screaming or yelling at somebody if he's really quite scared, or removing himself from the situation, which sounds like a good strategy, but it's not always a good strategy. And we worry about simple things like if he's on a bus and he sees an altercation going on, would he put himself somehow in the middle or start yelling at someone, and if that someone were a dangerous person, what might be the result as it relates to Eric's life. So we're pretty worried about just that aspect of safety. The health side of that sort of safety has more to do with if he were living alone and didn't yet have a schedule, a structure, employment, he would stay in bed till noon, play some chess on the computer, and watch the Disney Channel. I'm not sure that would be a very fulfilling life for him.
What kinds of work and career preparation experiences has Eric had?
Well, the couple of things that would relate to that while he was still in college, I think. Number one, his summer job, which he really just fell into because he had been going as a camper to chess camp, and he kind of aged out of being a camper. And the wonderful head of School Chess Association was willing, on our request, to have him sort of volunteer as an assistant coach or assistant instructor, and realized very quickly that Eric was very, very good at that, and that the little kids love him and really enjoy him, and he knows what he's doing. And if you give him very specific directions about what he's supposed to be doing, he can do it. And even the first summer when we had asked about volunteering, after a week or two, she said, I have to pay him. He can't just be a volunteer. He's doing this job. So that, I think, was his preparation for a teaching, working role, which he did the last 2 years of college in the summertime. And then when he was in college, he had, I think, a sociology class where he had to do a experiential activity with it, and the professor helped him get a position in a place in downtown Sioux City where adults were coming for English language learning, and he's quite fluent in Spanish. And so, again, with very specific instructions, mostly working one-on-one, he could do that job, which then, it wasn't a job, I mean, it was a very short-term experience. That led to, he had an experiential piece, internship he had to do with an education class, and a young woman whom we had hired to help him with executive functioning was also doing an internship, and asked her school and the principal and a teacher whether Eric could come and do some teaching assistant work with her. So it was, again, only the first year, I think, or the first semester, maybe an hour a week. His last semester in school, he learned to take the cab to go to the school, to do his own work at the school system for a few days, an hour or two each time at the school. So that also, I think, put him in the mind frame that being a teaching assistant would be something he could do, and that he loved. He was working with kindergarten students at the school in Sioux City.
That's great. And then more recently, since he graduated last May, what's he been up to?
Well, he graduated in May, and June, July, and August his summer job at chess camp, which he loves. And he only had Fridays off in the summer. And so I think that was when we got hooked up with Voc Rehab in a fairly limited way because he had his summer job. And Mom started looking online at the different school districts to see what kinds of positions might exist in terms of being a para or a teaching assistant. And I found several. I helped Eric apply for several, and he got a couple of interviews. One of those interviews was very successful, and he was offered a job as a teaching assistant for the fall. It was a full-time job. It was pretty far from where we live. It was in a very difficult school system, and he stayed at that job for about 2 months. In his exit interview, the principal really said to him, Eric, if we'd been a really top 10% school in Minnesota, I think this would have worked, and you would have wanted to continue, and we would have wanted you to continue. It was kind of by mutual agreement that he didn't continue. The principal himself said, we're really a bottom 5% school in Minnesota, and it was too rough of an atmosphere for Eric without sufficient job coaching abilities, maybe not full-time job coaching, but certainly he needed a lot more support in that kind of position than they were able to give him. So he's still kind of hopeful because he loved the work when he got to do it with children when it was educational work, but having to deal in a big way with discipline, he really couldn't do that at all, not at all.
What kinds of support do you think he'll need down the road?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out as we speak. By his own admission, his executive functioning skills are very lacking, and trying and seeing the big picture and figuring out, oh, that needs doing. Oh yes, I ought to stop and do that or be helpful in that way. That's extremely difficult for him. So I think the basic sort of job coaching in a big way, I don't know exactly what that looks like and how that comes to happen, but it's really clear to me that he's going to need that. In terms of basic independent living skills, I would say that Eric fits very much the profile of what used to be called Asperger's. Very, very smart, but not so good at how you just make it through every day. We operated as his alarm clock in college, despite the fact that every week my husband and I would say, okay, we're not doing that anymore, he has to learn. We just couldn't let him fail in that situation. And he had people that we hired to help him all through college, either extra tutoring academically or specifically organizing his life, not on a daily basis, but certainly weekly, sometimes twice weekly. Just remembering to do the wash or doing it. I think we've got him doing the wash. Folding the clothes, another question. And I know that it's not like you have to be able to fold clothes to live an independent life, but there's just not a sense that he's got the pieces coming together in any realistic way. We finally can pretty regularly make a meal in the microwave. But really thinking about and eating meals regularly, shopping for them, just making the normal tasks of life happen, that's not happening. And frankly, I don't know exactly what the supports are that will help to make that happen. I just know that he's an incredibly engaging, social young man who needs social contact and recreation, mostly in the form of chess, but other recreation would be nice as well. And he just doesn't have that. His family are everything to him right now, whether it's his social life, his supporting life, his thinking about what employment might look like, and doing the kinds of things, just normal things that one might do to get ready for employment. He wouldn't think of any of that on his own at this point.
Well, thank you very much. That sounds like a great kid.
He is a great kid.
Next, we're going to speak with Caleb Goetz. Caleb is an enthusiastic, fun-loving young man who would like to be an important and contributing member of his community. He understands the struggles and roadblocks that his disability throws at him, and he faces them head-on and never lets them get him down or hold him back. His positive attitude is very infectious, as is his desire to learn new skills and to help him be the best at everything he wants to do in life. Caleb graduated from Eastridge High School in Woodbury and attended the Next Step transition program. Afterward, Caleb began working at Midwest Special Services and is excited about his next opportunity at the Green Mill restaurant. Welcome, Caleb.
Thank you, Joe.
Can you tell us about your transition from high school to Next Steps?
Yes, I sure will, Joe. First of all, I went to Eastwood High School. I graduated in 2012. I graduated in July, but I got my diploma. But here's the problem, because I didn't receive it because I got this book, like a diploma book, and it's recognized of the high school. And I attended a 3-year transition program in a Cottage Grove called Next Step Transition Program. I graduated already in June 3rd, and it's kind of positioning of that, progressing, and I got my real official diploma. I was at Next Step. Is a lot of technique and physical place I've ever been to. I do have a lot of friends. I have one friend. She's a Down syndrome boy, just like me, and I go to school with him for a long time. And we were friends outside of high school. But he went to Park High School. We play adapted soccer and softball team. That is a sport, and we play indoors. We do not play outside.
Okay. Can you tell me what kinds of things besides the sports you did while you were at Next Steps?
Well, at Next Step, I have resigned from that now. At Next Step is just like getting to know all the new teachers, getting to know my case manager, sitting with new friends, but sometimes I get nervous about when I'm going to have lunch, because it's kind of between the middle, because it's different, because we eat lunch at 11, because I sit down with friends, and I sit down with my friend too, but it's kind of a lot of challenging moments and a really good good memories I had.
Did you do any work experience things at Next Steps?
Yes, I did, Joe. I worked at Culver's in a Cottage Grove. It's like a busing. I do. Same thing with that note. I clean tables, chairs, but I do not serve food, though, Joe. But it's kind of a positioning of the new jobs coming in because I had a lot of them. I worked at Presswood Care and Homes. I got hired as a employee. My boss, Sam, he's a cook. He is the head chef.
Okay.
I got this position of doing the same thing, busing, and it's kind of new right now. Like you're taking the press away, the silverware away, and it's just like you're out there into the community world, and it's just like the Midwest Special Services in Oakdale, Minnesota, and my DC, DC, Heather Benson is my caseload right now, and she do all the rides for me. I take the public transportation, transit link. I used to live in Cottage Grove, but now I moved, and I moved to Stillwater because we bought a house, and we bought a land, or a piece of art, and it looks like an art you draw. Now I live in Hastings now, and I am so blessed to be there. I have two wonderful parents, Rob and Dana Goetz. They are my guardians. I lost my grandparents to 2014. They were dear to me, but I do miss my grandma so much. She always makes me the best strawberry crepes.
So you started going to Midwest Special Services last year after you finished at the transition program?
Well, after I got done from Next Step, I attended at the Midwest, like in June 10th, I think.
What did you do at Midwest Special Services the last 8 months?
Well, it's kind of new to me. Getting to know all the same people from Next Step and from East Ridge, but it's kind of different because their lunch hours is at 12. Because at Next Step, we used to eat lunch at 11, but now I am at the Oakdale, but we don't eat lunch till like 12. But it's kind of different for me to eat lunch from Next Step to the Midwest.
Okay. And then I understand, what kinds of things were you doing at Midwest during the day besides lunch?
Well, during the day, I go to groups. I just like we do. If you want to join cooking club, or if you want to join arts and crafts, or if you want to join like film projects or something like that. Fitness every day. I'm getting really good at exercise, and I am healthy as a horse.
Good.
Joe?
And then later this month, you're starting a new position. Tell me about that.
Well, I have a job coach right now. Her name is Regina Cole. She's from the Midwest Special Services in St. Paul. She helped me to fill my resume. Well, I got this job opportunity, went to the Green Mill Pizza in Hastings. I just want to tell you a really short story with that note, Joe. My parents and I, we love Green Mill so much. We love to eat pizza. And the next door of the Green Mill, my favorite type of a restaurant is my favorite dessert place. It's called Schoolhouse Hoops, and it's a long story. I know it's like a basketball, but it's not. But it's a like a ice cream place, and I love to get the peanut butter swirl. Oh, that is to die for there, Joe.
I'll have to try that sometime.
Yeah.
And so the Green Mill, you had an interview there?
Yes, I did. I filled out an application online. Don't know how the system works, but they were talking about me at the Green Mill, and they want to hire disabilities, as in the president said before. But I did have an interview, and my job coach was there too. She was, she's gonna help me with the schedule rise, but now I'm working Monday through Wednesdays in the morning, and then go back to the Midwest, and it's just like, you know, getting to know all the communities. It's hard to understand that, but you gotta accept it, and it's kind of between the basics of we do, and it's just like the Midwest. And I go out on job sites, like Augsburg College, or like St. Thomas.
And do you like meeting new customers at the restaurant?
Well, I do. I think it's just like kids, site thing. It's like a public school, and it's just not because I'm kind of jealous right now, because I want to go to Augsburg or St. Thomas for my schooling, but I can't right now because I am at the Midwest. But it looks like college. It does look like college if you go to the Midwest Special Services. It's a nice, relaxing place, just kind of getting the routine down. Boom, 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 boom.
So you'd like some more opportunities for
Yeah.
for training down the road.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, no problem, Joe. I love to be here, and God bless America.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, Lyth or Bobbi, is there anything you'd like to add?
The one thing, now it's on. The one thing that I would like to add is that I mentioned that we have plans to end doing in-house work. That's a hard thing for me to do, because what I see myself doing now is taking away an option for people. But it's just that we're not doing it very well. There's others out there that do it well, and we hope that that they'll continue to do it well, and we're going to transition our business customers to those folks that can help them out. We believe now we just need to do the community piece very well, and Caleb, we got some more work to do for you too, because if you want more opportunities, it's up to me to make them happen for you. So you've given me a challenge.
Thank you very much.
Well, the only thing that I'd say is when you talk about what supports or what is sort of going on. I think there's just unique challenges for somebody like Eric, where when people look at his life, it looks like it's been incredibly successful, and it has, and he deserves every bit that he has achieved. But I think figuring out, certainly as a parent, there's bazillions of agencies and programs and supports and whatever, but when you're someone like Eric, he doesn't have a clue how to access those, or even how to figure out what he needs, let alone what those are. And his parents aren't far behind in terms of, we're not quite sure either. And you sort of feel like at this point, he's 24, we haven't figured that out yet. And the answer is no, we haven't. And so as we look to the future and thinking about really the what is it, the dignity of risk, we do really want him to be able to experience the dignity of risk and make those choices in as safe a way as possible. But it just seems like it's a tremendously difficult time for someone whose needs certainly are not visibly apparent. And I think that that's just a very special challenge for all the agencies out there in terms of how to really help people like Eric, who have the capacity to be extremely productive people in our society. And how they're going to get there from here is, I think, still quite the mystery.
Well said. Thank you. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Bobbi. Thanks, Lyth. I think that we had some really interesting observations about how work is worth the risk, and that balancing opportunity and safety is a really important part of employment situations for people with developmental disabilities. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.